Tonight, a fascinating new perspective on one of the United States' most iconic figures, the late Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis.
Jacqueline Kennedy.
Jacqueline Kennedy.
Jacqueline Kennedy.
Jacqueline Kennedy.
Jacqueline Kennedy.
Jackie Kennedy.
Jackie Kennedy.
Jackie Kennedy. JBKO.
On July 28, 1929, John Vernal Bouvier III, a wealthy Wall Street stockbroker, and Janet Norton Lee, a socialite and famous horsewoman, welcomed their first daughter, Jacqueline Lee Bouvier. She was 1/2 Irish and 1/8 French, and she was raised a Roman Catholic. In 1933, 4 years after Jackie was born, she became an older sister to Carol Lee Bouvier, who they would call Lee for short. Growing up, she was average-looking. The only things separating her from other children were her big brown eyes and her height.
She's the child of privilege. They grew up in New York and summered in all the right places.
After summer in the Hamptons in 1935, Jackie started kindergarten at the Champlain School for Girls in New York City. In 1940, her parents divorced, so she had to finish grammar school and start high school at the Holton Arms School in Washington, D.C. from 1942 to 1944. During her years in school, Jackie developed a love for horseback riding, following in the footsteps of her mother. Horse riding became something Jackie excelled in. She competed in many competitions and won many medals. Between 1946 and 1947, Jackie spent her last year of high school at Miss Porter's, a boarding school in Farmingdale, Connecticut. While at Miss Porter's, Jackie wrote a series of letters to her boyfriend, R. Beverly Corbin Jr., who was a year older than her and attended Harvard University. In one letter, she described life at Miss Porter's as a prison. She vowed she would never send her children to boarding school. She wrote, "They'll all be morons, but at least they won't have to tear around and get their teeth knocked out playing hockey every day." At an early age, it was clear she had a romantic streak and wouldn't settle for half measures. In a letter to Beverly, she wrote, "Can you think of anything worse than living in a small town like this all your life and competing to see which housewife can bake the best cake?" When Jackie graduated Miss Porter's, in her yearbook profile, she wrote that she did not want to become a housewife. Little did she know that's exactly what she would be. Her parents' divorce and the struggles that came with moving schools made her headstrong and independent, traits that would stay with her forever. 1947 was a lucky year for Jackie. After attending 2 different boarding schools, learning 4 different languages, doing very well in her college board exams, she graduated Miss Porter's and was accepted to Vassar College. The most memorable moment for her in 1947 was when Igor Cassini, a renowned New York Society columnist, named her Debutante of the Year. This was a surprise to everyone that knew her because she never really had an interest in beauty and fashion until her late teenage years. Because of this, Jackie became an overnight sensation. Jackie spent freshman and sophomore year of college at Vassar and decided to study abroad her junior year. After studying at Smith College in Sorbonne, France, she returned to America in 1950. Jackie spent her senior year of college at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. In the middle of completing her degree, she entered Vogue magazine's annual Prix de Paris competition, a writing contest with the grand prize of working as a junior editor for 6 months in the New York office and 6 months in the Paris office. Out of 1,300 applicants, Jackie won. But this was a short-lived job because on her first day in the New York office, she quit, saying that her mother felt strongly about keeping her home, which was partially true.
And her mother was also afraid, as was Jackie, that if she returned to Paris, where she had spent a semester in school, that she might live there.
Another reason was that once she got a close look inside the overwhelmingly female environment of Vogue, her suspicions that the fashion world wasn't the best place for her was confirmed. Ironically, Jackie would end up having a place in the fashion world. When she graduated George Washington University in 1951, she landed a job at the Washington Times-Herald as an acquiring camera girl. She turned what was supposed to be a boring column into her own adventure by taking pictures of people and asking them questions on the issues of the day.
You're on your lunch break on the streets of Washington when a young brunette woman carrying a clumsy Graflex camera stops you in your tracks and says, "Do you consider yourself normal?" Or, "You look important. Are you? Would you like to be famous?" What prominent person's death affected you the most? What is the greatest need in the world today? What are you living for? Do you think hope ever dies? If you could be reincarnated, who would you be? Should a wife let her husband think he's smarter than her? Chaucer said that women most desire power over men. What do you think? When did you discover that women are not the weaker sex?
Things were going well for Jackie. She was straight out of college with a job. She was beautiful and had a wealthy family to support her. What else could she possibly need? In April of 1952, young Congressman John Fitzgerald Kennedy, whom Jackie had met once before, decided to run for Senate. Jackie heard a lot about him around the office and was intrigued. She knew she had to get an interview with him, and with one call, she was put back into his mind. As soon as the two saw each other again, they immediately fell in love.
And you used to be a reporter, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you first met the senator when you interviewed him?
Well, I interviewed him shortly after I met him.
John was everything a woman could want. He was handsome, rich, respectful, and intelligent. Not to mention, he was a popular 3-term congressman on his way to becoming a senator. He fell for Jackie's beauty and intelligence, like most people in America do. Together, they were unstoppable. They started to see each other more seriously, and in January of 1953, things were made official. John took Jackie as his date to the inaugural ball for President Dwight D. Eisenhower. However, being the hopeless romantic she was, Jackie wanted to make sure she was fully in love with Jack before they wed. She had heard rumors of Jack's womanizing and hoped that when they became married, all of those negative features of him would no longer exist. So in typical Jackie fashion, she tried to play hard to get. Her plan didn't work out so well because on July 24th, 1953, the two announced their engagement. A few months later, on September 12th, they were officially married. This was the marriage of the century. Everybody wanted to know every little detail about the wedding. As one of America's first power couples, they inspired many, and everyone was either attracted to Jack or Jackie. After the wedding, the perfect couple would soon become the perfect family. Since Jack and Jackie both came from a big family, it was only natural that they wanted a big family of their own. So when Jackie became pregnant, both were so excited. Unfortunately, in the early months of her pregnancy, she had a miscarriage. After her miscarriage, Jackie became depressed and took a trip to England with her mother and her sister. They left England for a few days and traveled to Paris to shop. There, Jackie saw that being skinny was in. This new fashion trend would change her life forever. Since she had the ideal body shape for a woman in Paris, she fit into all the designer clothes. In Paris, she met her own personal designer, who would be the person behind all of her famous outfits. Soon after Jackie returned to America, she was pregnant for the second time. On Friday, August 17, 1956, Jackie was 8 months pregnant and beside her husband as they waited to hear if he would win the bid for the Democratic nomination for vice president. Unfortunately, he lost. Jackie had been advised by her doctor to not attend Jack's conventions because of all the emotional and physical motion that might be required could possibly cause another miscarriage. He was right. This was on August 23rd, only a few days after Jack lost the bid. Unlike the last miscarriage, Jack wasn't with her because he was in New York with a couple of friends. So in Newport, Rhode Island, Jackie had to give birth to a stillborn little girl, Arabella. Again, she fell into another depression and returned back to England. Jackie threw pity parties for herself and did whatever pleased her in the English countryside. Jack had been touring around America giving speeches, and Jackie never went with him. She referred to politics as her enemy because it was the reason they never had a home life. Jack and Jackie's marriage began to crumble, and there was talk of divorce. Joe Kennedy, Jack's father, had a heart-to-heart with his son and later with Jackie, persuading them not to divorce. Eventually, the two worked on their problems and held on to each other. With fame came a stronger development of self-confidence. Jack and Jackie's marriage was getting better, and they were now living in a stable home. Jack bought a 3-story red brick house in Georgetown for him and his wife, and for the 3rd time, Jackie was pregnant. Her life was beginning to fit the mold she had always imagined.
I can't begin to knowing, but then I know it's growing strong.
On November 27, 1957, Jackie finally gave birth to her first child, a healthy daughter weighing 7 pounds and 2 ounces named Caroline Bouvier Kennedy.
Who'd have believed you'd come along?
Pleasure to have you here, and I want you to meet my daughter Caroline and my wife Jackie.
How do you do? I'm glad you had a chance to see something of the Senate, and now to see our house where we've lived a year, and since Caroline was born. And I look forward to meeting all of you this fall as soon as the Senate is out, and we'll be back in Massachusetts.
Touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sweet Caroline.
The excitement didn't end there. 3 years later, on January 2nd, 1960, Jack announced that he was running for president. Shortly after the announcement, the family had an announcement of their own. Jackie was pregnant with their 2nd child. Despite her pregnancy, Jackie did everything she was capable of doing to ensure a victory for her husband. She helped campaign all over the country, even using the Spanish skills she learned in school.
Queridos amigos, les habla la esposa del senador John F. Kennedy, candidato a la presidencia de los Estados Unidos. En estos tiempos de tanto peligro, cuando la paz mundial se ve amenazada por el comunismo, es necesario tener en la Casa Blanca un líder capaz de guiar nuestros destinos con una mano firme. Mi esposo siempre vigilará los intereses de todos los sectores de nuestra sociedad que necesitan la protección de un gobierno humanitario para el futuro de nuestros niños y para lograr un mundo donde exista la paz verdadera. Voten ustedes por el Partido Demócrata el día 8 de noviembre. Que viva Kennedy.
When did you first get the word of the senator's nomination last night?
Well, I was watching television, so I suppose the same time everyone else did.
Did you think that he would get it on the first ballot?
I hoped he would, but I didn't know. He telephoned me before the balloting, then right after it, and then about 5:30 in the morning.
What was the subject conversation between you and the senator when he called? What were the first words?
Hello, isn't it wonderful? Do you think so? Yes. Nothing that made very much sense. Just happy people.
Finally, on November 8th, Jack defeated Richard Nixon to become the 35th President of the United States. On November 25th, a week before Caroline's 3rd birthday, the family welcomed their newest member. Jackie gave birth for the 2nd time to a baby boy named John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. The Kennedys were overwhelmed with joy. Not only had Jack won the presidential election, but they finally had 2 healthy children. From there, everything went uphill. On January 20th, 1961, Jack took the oath of office, officially becoming the President of the United States. He was the first president to be Roman Catholic. At 43 years old, he was the youngest elected president, and at 31 years old, Jackie became the youngest First Lady.
It was like children waiting for Christmas or something, getting up and getting dressed, and the snowstorm, all the excitement.
Both Jack and Jackie made a statement at the inauguration. Jack's speech was aimed not only to the entire country, but also to the young adults of America. In his speech, he grabbed the attention of the people with these words.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
And although Jackie didn't actually give a speech, she snatched the attention of the people with her charm and elegance as she proudly watched her husband.
Vice President Johnson's 16-year-old daughter was mesmerized, not by her father taking his oath.
I don't think it'll make much difference. He's still our father.
But by the new First Lady.
Running the White House in the country at this time wasn't easy. The family occupied office during the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Civil Rights Movement. America was on edge with fear of a nuclear war with Russia every day. The country was in much need of hope, and that's exactly what the Kennedys gave them. While Jack was running the country, Jackie was restoring the faith of America in the White House. The family was made to help America during the tough times, earning the Kennedy era the nickname Camelot. Americans made the connection between the popular play and the Kennedy family because, like the play, everything they did was perfect.
You know, it was a woman that just worked very, very hard and made it look very effortless. And ultimately, she did it to not only help her husband, but to help our country. And she really understood the power of, if he looked like a king and she looked like a queen, well, that our country looked amazing. And still, that's why we look back at this time period.
Jackie was classy, elegant, gorgeous, and provided the country with an infinite amount of hope, all while being a great wife and raising 2 children. Being the wife of the President of the United States wasn't easy. There were times when Jackie was unable to see Jack, especially when they took vacations. The family went out to Newport, Rhode Island to their summer home for a vacation. Jack couldn't stay the entire time, so Jackie was left to entertain her children. Although they were not physically together, Jack still wrote her letters to keep in touch.
Dearest Jackie, I'm divide this letter into 2 parts, one typewritten and the other handwritten. The typewritten part to give you the news of my visit to Newport, period. I went up there last Friday afternoon, and Caroline looked beautiful. She was a great success on the beach and seemed to love the water.
Jackie wanted to make sure she raised Caroline and John Jr. in such a way that would make them responsible, respectful, but most of all, normal kids.
My mother was really into character-building experiences for us. Mm-hmm. This was her kind of, that's what she called basically torture. And so she had lots of different ideas about character building so that we wouldn't become spoiled.
Women all over the nation looked up to her. With her entering in the White House, America saw an emergence of her fashion sense, making her America's finest trendsetter. Her sense was something new that no one had seen before.
Jackie just revolutionized the nation's view of fashion. Every story I wrote back then about the event or whatever, I always had to have some paragraphs in there about the dress and where it came from.
Prior to Jackie becoming the First Lady, young girls and women looked up to actresses and popular models. Once Jackie stepped foot in the White House, she immediately became every girl's role model.
She had this sort of movie star quality and beyond.
Because of Jackie, the White House is a symbol of America, making it a living museum of history. The reason for this was because she restored it to make it look more up to date. She thought it was essential to preserve the classic works of art and furniture that had been around since the earliest presidents, while also bringing in her Kennedy touch.
Tell me about the silverware and the china, Mrs. Kennedy.
It's all gold or vermeil. They used to use Monroe's knives and forks, but so many of them have been lost, so they've been copied. And the china is the Eisenhower gold china. You see, so many of the beautiful old services the presidents had were destroyed and broken. So now the Truman and the Eisenhower china is all that there's enough left of to use. And these glasses, they're ours. I wanted a very simple design so that the china and silver and glass would show up more. So I looked all over, and the prettiest ones I found came from West Virginia.
Aside from her restoration, Jackie made sure to have different aspects of culture in the White House.
Jackie Kennedy saw her role as establishing the White House as a beacon for arts and culture.
Jackie also changed the way America saw the role of women. It was now seen as okay for a woman to be a bit brainy or cultured. Everything was going great in the Kennedys' lives. They had 2 healthy kids and were helping America. That was until November 22nd, 1963, when disaster struck the United States. The President of the United States was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald. While riding in an open-top Cadillac, Jackie watched the love of her life get shot to death.
It's so strange these things have come back. I always thought with Jack that anything he could make, once he was in control, anything, all the best things would happen. In this childish way, I thought I won't have to be afraid when I go to sleep at night or wake up. It's so strange these things have come back.
She knew in that moment what she had to do to fulfill the commitment to her husband, her children, and her country. Her famous bright pink Chanel suit was splattered with blood, but even then she refused to take it off or leave her husband's side. Hugh Sidey wrote, "When an assassin's bullets shattered the dream, she showed the world that there was an unimagined strength beneath the silk." On that day, the true effect of the Kennedys showed as America stopped.
I want to take this opportunity to express my appreciation for the hundreds of thousands of messages, nearly 800,000 in all, which my children and I have received over the past few weeks. The knowledge of the affection in which my husband was held by all of you has sustained me.
Jackie never got over the death of her first husband. However, 5 years later, she married a Greek shipping tycoon, Aristotle Onassis, and moved to New York. Their marriage ended with his death in 1975. Jackie was only 45 years old and now a widow for the second time. In January of 1994, she was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma because of smoking. A couple of months later, on May 19, 1994, America, the fashion world, and women all over the world lost an icon as Jackie Kennedy Onassis was pronounced dead in her Fifth Avenue apartment at the age of 64.
Jacqueline Kennedy was classic American, but refined in such a way that it could read internationally. And the codes of her dressing are still very much alive. No one would ever take it as an insult if they were compared to Jacqueline Kennedy.
Jackie left an imprint on America that no one could ever imitate. She changed the way the rest of the world perceived America through her style, grace, her impassioned support of the arts, as well as her key role in historic preservation. Because of Jacqueline Lee Bouvier Kennedy Onassis, America lived.
I am the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris, and I've enjoyed it.